give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up, up and back. That's my radiation. Thumbs up, good. Two back there in the back. Good, good. All right, thank you very much. We are starting on time.
I represent the Southwest Washington City, Highland Park, Council Oct.
Yay. Here. Hi everyone, I'm Kelsey Yay. I'm a council member representing Ward 6, which is the northmost corner of our city. Thanks for being here as well. Jalali. Everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Lisa Jalali. I'm a council member from Ward 4. I represent the Lincoln Way, Belleville, Back Neighborhood, St. Anthony Park, Lincoln Park, Marion Park, West Mexico area. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you. Here, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Yeager. I represent Ward 2, which is downtown, West Side, 7th neighborhood.
But we appreciate that in spite of the weather, folks have turned out in force to participate today and to be part of the democratic process. We are going to be holding our regularly scheduled council meeting in advance of our public input session because we knew folks were, maybe we knew it was going to be cold and windy, but we moved any sort of controversial or involved council items to next week, which will be a long meeting if you want to tune into that online. So our regularly scheduled meeting will be quick, but we will have to go through some items in advance of our public hearing. 3 years ago, we began doing an early public input session on our city budget. We heard from you the year prior that you felt that the time that you were invited to engage in the council budget process was just too late, that decisions had already been made and that we didn't have an opportunity to listen to what your reflections were on the budget and what your priorities were on the budget. And so we decided that it would be much better to engage with the community in October, well in advance of our final decision making. And so we did this last year virtually, we did it the first year in person, and so this third year, maybe we'll do it different every year, I don't know. But we're having it outdoors and it'll be a little bit of a different format. We'll talk about that when we get to that item on the agenda. So we are going to move into our meeting, but before we start, I would also truly like to acknowledge and mourn the senseless shootings that took place in our city this week. A dozen of people were shot, and In particularly, we want to send our love and our light to the family of Markeisha Wiley, who was senselessly murdered down in a busy bar on West 7th Street. And so before we start, if we could take a pause to recognize these families who are suffering the trauma in our community and lifting up a better future for our community, we would appreciate that. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our regular council meeting at this time.
Consent agenda items 2 through 12 are before you for your consideration.
All right. Are there items that should be taken off consent today? Any items that need to be taken separately? Seeing none, Ms. Naker moves the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
The consent agenda is adopted, 6 in favor, no one opposed. Item 13 was Resolution Public Hearing 21-243, approving the request of District Energy St. Paul, Inc. to amend district cooling rates for fiscal year 2022. The public hearing was closed on October 6th.
This public hearing was closed and laid over for a final vote. So moved by Ms. Prince. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Prince.
If I could just say that I had a few questions about this matter concerning district energy. I had a very good meeting with our resilience chief, Russ Stark, and district energy executive director, Ken Smith. And I had the opportunity to get some update on our plans toward electrification and are working with Xcel Energy on that issue. And so I would like to move approval on each of these items.
All right, so moved by Ms. Prince. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 14, Resolution Public Hearing 21-244, approving the request of District Energy St. Paul, Inc. to amend district heating rates for fiscal year 2022. Public hearing was closed on October 6th.
And again, this item is moved by Ms. Prince. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Or I'm sorry, God. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Got used to the old way of doing business, so sorry about that.
Item 15, Resolution Public Hearing 21-252, amending the open space lot specific standards for the Ford Site Zoning and Public Realm Master Plan. Public hearing was closed on October 6th.
And this item, a public hearing was closed last week so that it would pass in partnership with a companion item on this agenda. Mr. Tolbert would move approval. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Prince.
Yes, I'd just like to say I'm very supportive of the green roof incentive provision in this resolution, but I do come to this meeting unprepared to vote on part of it because I did not have an opportunity to completely dig into it, so I will abstain on this issue.
All right. Any other discussion on this item? Mr. Tolbert.
I'll just say, speaking in favor of it, I think it's a good resolution, and the companion ordinance as well is good to make it work practically down at Highland Bridge and the Ford site. And I'll just reiterate for anybody who is joining the conversation late or to rebut some of the rumors in the neighborhood, this does not affect our parkland. All the parks have been deeded to the city long ago, and this has to do with what's called open space on actual sites with building sites. And so I just want to clarify that for anybody who's joining the conversation late or has been confused by the language around it, and I would make a motion to approve.
Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
5 in favor, 1 abstention, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 16 is final adoption of ordinance 21-33, amending chapters 65 and 66 of the legislative code pertaining to homeless services facilities. Public hearing was closed on October 6th.
This item is before us for final adoption. Is there any final, Ms. Prince?
And as I mentioned in the last item, I will, wait, excuse me. I'd like to lay this over for 3 weeks.
All right. There's a motion for a 3-week layover from Councilmember Prince. Any discussion on that motion? All right. And my understanding is that this layover is just some time to do some fine tuning on some minor amendments.
To look at the potential of some minor amendments that would clarify the language.
Okay, great. All right, so there's a motion to lay the matter over for 3 weeks. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is laid over to November 3rd. Item 17 is final adoption of ordinance 21-35, amending chapter 66 of the legislative code pertaining to the 4 districts. Public hearing was closed on October 6th.
All right. And this item is before us for a final vote. Mr. Tolbert will move approval. Ms. Prince is abstaining. Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion prevails.
5 in favor, no one opposed, 1 abstention. The ordinance is adopted. Item 18 is first reading of ordinance 21-38, amending section 94.13 of the legislative code to ensure consistency with the 2015 Minnesota plumbing and building codes.
I believe Travis Bistido is here with a very brief staff report on this item. This is a first reading of a public hearing. While Mr. Bistido comes up to the mic, we'll tell people that we, during COVID, adjusted our ordinances to a 3-reading approach to create some efficiencies. The first reading has a staff report, the second reading has a public hearing, and we vote on the 3rd reading. So welcome for the staff report today out in the wild. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Council President Brenmoen, council members, good afternoon. My name is Travis Bistidu. I am currently one of 2 deputy directors for the Department of Safety and Inspections, or at least that's the hat I'm wearing today. The amendment before you today is simply an effort by DSI to remove some confusing and conflicting language that we have in our legislative code with regards to heat exchangers. Specifically, the Minnesota State Building Code and our delegated agreement with the state prohibit municipalities from creating and enforcing building code requirements that are more restrictive than what's required by the code itself. Since the state adopted the 2015 Building Code and Plumbing Code, some of the language in the legislative code now conflicts with that newest version related to double-walled heat exchangers. This amendment simply removes that double-walled heat exchanger language to align with the building code and minimize confusion and complaints from DSI customers. From a safety perspective, neither DSI nor the St. Paul Regional Water District have reservations about removing this provision and support the proposed amendment. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
All right, we're going to take care of the downed flag. Are there any questions? Are there any questions on this item? All right, thank you very much for your report. Thanks for being here today.
This ordinance is laid over to October 20th for second reading public hearing. Item 19 is first reading of ordinance 21-40, granting the application of Abba Mohammed to rezone the property at 576 Lexington Parkway North from RT1 2-family residential to RM2 multifamily residential and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map.
And on this item, we are electing to hear the staff report at the second reading public hearing.
The ordinance is laid over to October 20th for that second reading public hearing. Legislative hearing consent agenda items 20 through 39 are before you for your consideration.
Oh, it's all right. Again, we're just kind of adjusting back to a live format. So is there anybody here to testify on items 20 through 39? There is no one here to testify on these items, so Ms. Naker will move to pass the legislative hearing agenda as amended. Any discussion on Ms. Naker's motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the consent agenda is adopted as amended. Item 40 is the public hearing on community input in the 2022 city budget.
All right. So for folks that are just arriving right now, I'll just quickly recap that we are holding annually community input sessions on the budget far in advance of the final date that we vote on our budget, which is the first week of December. We are here today to hear input from community members on the budget that was proposed to us by Mayor Carter. Perhaps your input on our ARP funds that are coming to the city, or that half of them have arrived to the city, $166 million, like a type of program that I've never seen, and I don't think we can expect to see again in our lifetime, coming to the city of St. Paul that is one-time funding, and other items that are affecting our budget. So we are going to first hear from Holly Houston, who is our Chief Budget Officer, will give us an overview of the budget that was presented to us. She has handed some of you a handout about the budget. If you've looked at it and you feel like you've seen enough and you want to share it with somebody who hasn't seen it, you could hold it up in the air if people want to look at the trifold that Holly Houston put together. But she'll give us an overview, and then we will go to a public input format. We have 2 microphones in front of us, and we'll take people's comments for up to 2 minutes. And we can talk about that when Ms. Houston is done with her overview of the 2022 budget proposal. Ms. Houston.
Thank you, Council President Brenmone and council members. It's good to be here today and see you in person. I'm going to briefly just go over at a very top level the city's budget. So the city's budget consists of the general fund expenses that flows through the expenses that flow through this fund support annual services like library, public safety, and rec programming. The property taxes that property owners pay within the city support these services. The total budget is $332 million. We also have special funds in our budget, and those are funds for services that are funded by fees or grants, and sometimes these services can be multi-year programs, and they are categorized into a different fund, and they represent $328 million. And finally, we have a debt fund, and that supports multi-year capital investments that ensure the maintenance of the city's infrastructure is maintained and updated to meet the community needs. That's $52.2 million this year, bringing the total city budget to $713 million. Just to put into context how much the property tax portion of the bill, or how much the property tax portion pays and supports that budget, it's 27.5% of the total. Then just to go over the handout, the first page really focused on property taxes because that's meaningful to everyone that's paying those here, and wanted to focus on that. So just the property tax levy this year is $176.6 million. That's just over half of the city's total general fund. The change this year is 6.9% proposed, and right now the City Council is evaluating the budget proposals and has the opportunity to make adjustments, and we can bring that number down throughout this process before final adoption. Within that $11.4 million, there's $6.1 million of new investments that the mayor proposed to the council for consideration. That includes restoring some budget reductions that were results of the pandemic last year and cut from the budget this year. It also includes establishing an Office of Neighborhood Safety, which is $1.25 million, service changes, housing and economic development, supporting the law enforcement career path academy, And then finally, each year the city's budget expenses continue to grow just with contract increasements, cost of living increasements for our staff. And the budget doesn't grow, on the revenue side doesn't grow unless the city council makes an adjustment to fees or property taxes. So 5.2 million of that proposed levy increase does support ongoing expenses in the city. And then just to let you know that when you receive your property tax bill, that a portion of that goes to the city, not the total amount. And so there's other taxing jurisdictions within the city, such as Ramsey County and the school district. There's a few others. So the graph there just shows that about last year, 29% of your property tax bill went to the city. And then as Council President Brenmone mentioned, this year we did receive the American Rescue Plan allocation from the federal government of $166.6 million. And the mayor's proposal within the budget this year sectioned off proposals of investment into neighborhood safety, housing, and job and career readiness of $40 million each. Modernization of city services for $18 million. So if you think about that, that just means some of the services the city has are not automated. You have to go in person or fill out a form, and so a modernization would be being able to do some of that work online. Vaccine and public health investments of $3.6 million and grant administration of $10 million. So that's the proposal outline. That's subject to change, and the council members have been actively engaging the community to get their input on how that they think that money should be spent. That money is specifically for COVID recovery and helping the city recover from the economic impacts of COVID-19. There's some other items there just for your reference on how the total budget is sectioned off by department. And then there's also a city council has a budget survey that we invite you to take. We've had over 180 responses so far, and that information will be summarized to the council at an upcoming budget meeting. So thank you for your participation, and I will be taking diligent notes and summarizing this for the council as they go into final deliberations over the next month before they adopt the budget on December 8th. And just to let you know, there is another public hearing once you receive your property tax bill called the Truth and Taxation Hearing on December 1st. That will be at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the council, Ms. Houston, thank you very much for your work in managing and preparing our budget, this presentation, and your work here today. Without you, I think we would be in a hurt locker. So thank you, really, we do appreciate everything you do to help us get through our annual budget process. You're fantastic. All right, so we are going to move on to the budget input session. This is a hearing format, and I want to share in advance with people that it isn't really a give and take, like you say something, we react to it, and it goes back and forth like that. It's an opportunity for us to hear from you in person. And we're all listening. We may be taking notes. We'll take this information back to our deliberation. This is by no means the only way to reach out to your council member. So if after this you're like, I really wanted to hear what Councilmember Naker thought about that, call her, email her, go to our community office hours, and that applies to all my colleagues here. We're very accessible. Our information is easily accessible on the internet. I'd like maybe our legislative aides could put their hands up. We have legislative aides from our office here who you could also speak to if you would like to get in touch. So while it isn't an opportunity to have a back and forth, we welcome the back and forth, and we would invite you to do that. We just want to make sure we get an opportunity to hear from folks today. To that end, we'll have a 2-minute limit on what people's comments are to us. I have the unenviable job of making sure that at 2 minutes you stop talking. And I can be frustrating if you've got a little bit more to say, but I always remind folks that we want to be as tuned in and paying attention to the last person who speaks as we are to the first person. And we also want to be fair and respectful so that everybody gets the same amount of time. Sherry Moore, our city clerk, will be helping us with a very handy, you have 30 seconds left sign. So you'll know when you have 30 seconds left. And then you can kind of tailor your comments accordingly. When you come up to the microphone, if you would please make sure that either before or after you testify, if you could sign in. There's a clipboard with flapping papers over here. Yep, there it is. Thank you. Now we'll have to put you on the payroll. But please sign in, including your name and your address. But when you testify, if you could share your name, speak your name clearly, tell us what your address is. And if you don't live in St. Paul, it would be really helpful for us to know how you're associated with St. Paul. I know there's a lot of folks here who work for the city, and they work in the Public Works Department, or they work for Parks. If you could tell us that, that would help us a lot too. And when you make your initial introductions, and then we will start the timer. So with that, welcome community. We're delighted to have you here. You're brave and strong and tenacious, and we welcome your comments. Come on up.
Good evening. Tom Diamond, live on the east side. Thank you very much for holding this meeting and holding it in such a wonderful place, this beautiful park. What I'm here to speak about is the American Rescue funding and to put it in one-time capital expenditures for livability in our neighborhoods. And we've talked about Pigs Eye Lake Regional Park. You see this wonderful park. Pigs Eye Regional Park has been in existence for regional parks since the regional parks began. The planning for the park itself is 100 years old, and $0 have been spent on our park. And you see the lush amenities at this and many other, and God bless you. Let me explain a little bit of the difference and why we don't get that funding. These are information from the city. These are the population differences between the metro region, southeast part of St. Paul, Dayton's Bluff, Seco District 1, and Highland Park, Mac Groveland. Okay, metro region, white population, 72.7%. Southeast, Highland, Highland 74.6, Mac Groveland 88.6. Highwood, Battle Creek is 38.6, Dayton's Bluff is 32.1. BIPOC populations, Metro 23.9%, Highland and 23.2, Mac Groveland 9.3. Dayton's Bluff 60.4, Highwood, Battle Creek 56.3. Those making $100,000 or more a year, families, 39.4 Metro, 36.4 Highland Park, 46.1 Mac Groveland, 17.4 Highwood, and Dayton's Bluff is 17.5. That's the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much. And I encourage you while you're making your statement to take a peek up so you can see when Ms. Moore holds up the sign. That was 2 minutes. It goes really fast. Thank you for being our first out of the chute. We appreciate that, and we appreciate your commitment to the city. Thank you so much. Welcome. Oh, and thank you. Also, look at, he's demonstrating the signing in. All right, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Jerry Ratliff, and I live at 1484 Van Buren. I've lived here only 42 years, and I've never been in the city meeting ever. I had about 25 things to share, and I cut them down to 7. I've never had any concerns in the 42 years. Here are my 7 questions, but I don't have any answers. My first question is, what criteria are you going to use to make sure that the programs are effective and successful? Number 2, will you use facts and be transparent? I read in the papers, and I read a lot in the magazines, etc., about data-driven safety stats, but they seem to be the opposite of the reality that I see day to day with gun violence, carjackings, etc. Number 3, will you let go of the new hires? When the mayor began 4 years ago, he hired 12 people at a cost of $1 million per year in their wages, probably the same in benefits. Are you going to take a look at those things? Number 4, will this hearing work like the mayor's committees where you ignore the recommendations? And he had huge committees. I hope not. Number 5, will the city work to be more respectful in terms of dialogue and drop hateful messaging? It sounds kind of bizarre, but little things are important. In the 1980s, I volunteered helping small owners deal with responsibilities and their rights, the rental property owners. And we eliminated terms like tenants and landlords. Those are gone 40 years ago, and you use those today. Yesterday, I had a wonderful young man who was 32 years old. He'd been in Afghanistan twice. He was a vet, and to make a long story short, he was a wonderful young man. I asked him if he liked being called a tenant. He was dropping literature in my door. He said no, and I did not. I repeat, I did not call him a wetback just because he came from Mexico. He became a citizen a year ago. Sir. And my final thing is, will the budget include a safety plan? Someday I hope we have a safety plan. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And a reminder, if you had more questions, please submit them to the council. There's a contact council email. We'd love to see them all.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Phyllis Lynch. I live at 878 California Avenue. I've been living in this area for 32 years. My husband Bob has been here all his life. What our main concerns are is the rent control that's being talked about. The fear that I have is somebody's going to tell you how much you can charge for anything that you have. If you want to sell your car, but they're going to tell you, you can only ask this much, that's it. We're just afraid it's going to carry on and on and on. There was an article in the paper about the smoke shops, what they can sell their cigarettes for, and the vapes for, no coupons, no specials. You're trying, it seems like little by little, we're losing control of our own stuff and being told what to do and how to do it. Another concern is the crime in the neighborhood, and the young people that are committing these crimes have committed many crimes before, and that is also posted on the St. Paul police site. Nothing is being done, and people say, okay, they're going to go in, they're going to get arrested, they're going to be put back out, and they're going to be committing crimes again because there's no place, nothing what they can do. Totem Town has been closed. Please open that up or find another solution that way. It worked before, and with the new ideas of getting counselors and therapists and everybody else in there to represent the young teens to help them, that's a good place to start. Lack of police, again, the numbers are going down. Crimes are going up, response times is going up. It used to be 11 minutes for secondary crime reports, now it's up to 15 minutes. It's not good. We got police running everywhere, and let's help them out. Let's give them a little bit more help. Police academies opening up, that's wonderful. That doesn't help us now. With the mayor and all his many committee members, take some of that funding, put it into more police. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Thanks. I don't know if there's a way to keep this hot. When we get to the end of 2 minutes, it's hard to, okay, we're good. Thank you. Welcome.
How's it going?
We're good.
Jason George, business manager, the operating engineers, Local 49, also St. Paul resident, 837 Linwood Avenue. Born and raised in St. Paul as well. Here to talk about the public works and the workers that are going through contract negotiations right now, and as you move forward with your budget, your consideration of them. The people that made this city go through a pandemic stayed on the job while others were at home. Right now, they're not being respected in these contract negotiations. That's not your all's deal. That's the mayor's deal. But as you go forward and you consider future budgets, you really need to take care of the people that take care of St. Paul. And that's a priority that I want you all to have, and I think everybody that's here today wants you to have. So, These are the folks that cleaned up the encampments, that cleaned up after the riots, that fixed the roads, potholes, parks. These are the folks that make St. Paul go, and that needs to be considered when you're talking about money. Budgets are priorities. I create a budget for our union every year, and there's priorities in that budget. Programs are great, people are better. Invest in your people is my message to you all as a St. Paul resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Welcome.
I'm in your district, of course. I live straight down that way across Como Lake there, where my dad grew up and my grandfather grew up in that building across from Como Elementary. My great-grandfather built, so we've been stuck in this city for a long, long time. And I'd like to, have my kids have the opportunity to enjoy this area. So my concern is climate change, and I've been working on climate change issues for at least 20 to 25 years without much success. What I wanted to impart to the council is this, that every dollar of expenditure carries with it a release of a climate change gas. I one time actually was able to match GDP with the total release of gases, and it ended up with a $1 to 1 pound relationship. Most people can't understand this, what do they call it, tons of carbon sort of metric that is used by engineers and stuff. And I was able to just say, pounds of climate change gases related to expenditures. I recalculated last 2 years ago before the pandemic, and it worked out to 1 pound of release of climate change gas for every $1.40 of GDP expenditures. So if anybody wants to use that metric, I think it's reasonable. I looked at it in a number of mathematical ways and made sense. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jeff Rubachen. I live in Harris, Minnesota. I'm a City of St. Paul employee. My question for you is, do you have a contingency plan in the 2022 budget to staff city departments come January 2nd when the proposed vaccine mandate comes into effect, which may reduce the St. Paul Police Department by up to 140 officers, the St. Paul firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics by up to 80 personnel, and an unknown amount of other employees across all collective bargaining units within the city. The city is refusing to honor the idea of testing employees weekly, the concept of natural immunity, and discussing emerging therapeutics as an option for city employees. In other words, it seems like no vaccine meets discipline or termination with the unknown approval of religious or medical exemptions. What is your plan to provide essential and ancillary services to the diverse city after possible terminations and disciplines or honoring employees' religious or medical exemptions? There's no other vaccine mandates currently being proposed throughout any other cities in the state of Minnesota, and Ramsey County also encourages testing. How is this going to be able to provide fair and equitable services to this very diverse community? Those are the questions I have for you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome, and make sure that it's up close just because of the wind. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning, good afternoon, council members. Paul Slattery, political director for the Teamsters Union, Local 120. I'm also a resident of St. Paul. I live in the Midway area, born and raised there. I live in the house I grew up in. So I'm here today. I come on behalf to talk about the open contract at the city with the Tri-Council. The Teamsters are part of that Tri-Council. We take care of the streets. We do the leaves. We do the potholes. We do the dirty work. So I'm here to speak on behalf of all my brothers and sisters out here. I just want to say, look, these are the men and women who are out here every day doing the hard work. I would invite you anytime, if you want to come out this winter and ride with one of our drivers while they're plowing the streets of the city. We'd love to have you in those trucks so you can really see what it's like. So I'm here to implore you settle this open contract that we have with the city. And now that we're talking about the 2022 budget, I want to implore you to provide more money for public services. I mean, these are the people who run our city. They worked all through COVID. They were not allowed to sit at home for any day. They came out every day and continued to do their jobs. Jason mentioned the abatements, that those are up. The homeless encampments and stuff, our members have to deal with that every day. We're doing our best, but we're out there in the trenches. We're not allowed to sit behind a desk. We do the hard work. I know y'all are cold up there. We're all cold out here too, but these men and women are cold every day they go to work. I mean, they're doing the hard stuff. Look at them. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate the consideration to increase the 2022 budget to allow more money for the Tri-Council and the Public Works and the people who run this city. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi, Council. My
Welcome.
name is Tony Kelly.
You can even pull it out of the stand if you need to.
Try. Hi, my name is Tony Kelly, and while I'm a resident of Minneapolis, I am proud to be the business manager at City Employees Local 363, working in partnership with the Tri-Council to represent the folks that you see here. I'm proud of what I do. I'm incredibly proud of what these people do every day. St. Paul has had some incredible challenges in the last couple of years. And these people have come in, as my colleagues have said before me, every day to make this city work. There is nothing more important that the City Council can do than what it does with its budget. Its budget is a statement of our values. What do we value? Our folks have come in and they've met the moment. They've risen to the challenge of a pandemic. They've risen to the challenge of civil unrest. I'm asking that you meet the moment to meet what they need and to provide for a future for our people.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And this is a general reminder to folks to be sure to sign in as well. So if you haven't already done so and you plan to speak, you can do it now. You can do it after you speak, but that becomes part of the public record so we can make sure that we track it appropriately and for history. Welcome and thank you for being here today.
Elmer Stevenson, St. Paul Regional Water. I'm also a property owner. I notice my taxes are probably going up 13% this year. I don't live in St. Paul, don't get to vote here. But what I do get to do is come down on the coldest days there are, not worrying about climate change, and with the people I work with, when the water main breaks, all anyone cares about is getting the water on. I have never seen so many people work through lunches, through breaks, just to get the water back on. And the only thing I don't really see in the budget is an increase in wage. Personally, for me, it don't matter. I'm going to retire. But these other guys, they're going to be here a long time, and it does not stand well that all we want to offer is 0% for a first year, 0% for the first 6 months of next year, and then a lousy 1.5%, which basically equals 40 cents an hour for the last half of a 2-year contract. And I think maybe we should spend a little bit more time thinking about what's important versus, oh, what can we do for everybody else who does nothing? Thank you.
Thank you, Elmer. Welcome.
Tabitha Mitchell, she, her, hers. I'm a proud Frogtown resident, St. Paul Park and Rec, and I'm vice president of AFSCME 1842. Today I want to come in one of solidarity of frontline workers who risked their life through a pandemic. I personally am pro-vaccine. What I am frustrated about is that we should have had testing the whole time. Every single day we went to work, and the billionaires made a ton of money off of COVID. You want to talk about economics? We didn't get a cost of living. All our bills go up, but our paychecks didn't go up. So if we cared about public safety, which I do, and I have conversations specifically with my BIPOC, my rec leaders who are African American, who have very valid reasons of historic trauma of why they don't trust the government, and very factions of it. So here we are, with frontline rec leaders gonna walk off the job. So where were our tests when we needed them before? What about the folks that are vaccinated who have to sleep in their car to not kill their 5-year-old who has life-threatening asthma? My union treasurer buried her grandmother because she lived in the same house, she got COVID at work, and she killed her grandmother. We understand the reality of COVID because we went to work every day. And there is a divide in this country. We were heroes when we went to work, when we kept toilet paper on the shelves, when we kept food, and when the streets and the water and the children were cared for. We will not be blamed as the working class for the spread of COVID. This country has sacrificed workers. The entire pandemic, and those with privilege in this room got to work from home, and that could have been hard too. But it wasn't as hard as sleeping in your car so you don't kill your baby. And that's what AFSCME members, Tri-Council, Teamsters, and every other damn union has done. We went to work. We need safety. We need more leave so we're not coming to work infected. And I need to be able to tell a patron who's coughing with no mask, you don't get to cough, cough, cough over the library, the rec center, the pool, and everything else. Because if I don't get to cough, cough, cough all over the mayor's office or anywhere else, my workers are not safe at work. I need funding for the front lines. I need raises. I need PPE. I need paid time off.
Thank
and
you,
the
Tabitha.
working class should not be sacrificed anymore.
Thank you. We have 2 open mics. Is there anyone else here who has, there's a lot of folks that are here who our representatives came up and spoke. We love to hear from our city employees. Welcome, thanks for being here.
Thank you. John Wegeleitner, St. Paul Fire Department. For the first time in St. Paul's history, employees here are going to be terminated in a few short weeks if they make a medical decision for themselves. I think that's draconian. I think it's unfortunate. And I truly think it's going to create chaos across the city. It can all be avoided. It doesn't have to be this way. I think creativity is required. I think there should be an allowance for natural immunity. People that have had COVID, I'm sure there's plenty of people in this room that have had COVID. And have worked through it. They've had time off. They took a bullet for the Team St. Paul. We're not asking for much. We're working for 0 next year. I think that's unfortunate. We're not asking for much, but just to keep our jobs if we decide to make a decision. A decision between our doctors and ourselves. I don't think human resources should be in the middle of that decision. The teachers can test and they can go to work. This is a test I picked up on the way over here from Walgreens. It's the Binex test. It'll tell you if you have COVID in 15 minutes. It's a nasal swab, and you can tell your employer that you're positive or not. The teachers can do it. I don't know why we can't. Why isn't there a testing option for us? That makes absolutely no sense. These are available, and I'm going to hand them to you before I go, and you can take a peek at that. It comes from Abbott Laboratories. Don't fire our people. Don't let them go over something stupid like this.
Thank you, John. You stepping up, sir? Coming up? I don't know if I can top that. You don't have to. You're just welcome to. You're invited.
My name is Ryan Christofferson. I am a 20-year veteran of the St. Paul Fire Department, and I'm here to speak on behalf of all of our members with the same concern that John just had. We've all stepped up to the plate. We have all come to work every day. Everybody in this auditorium has come to work every day for the last year and a half. We didn't ask you for anything. We came to work. All we're asking for now is a test. I still want to come to work. Everybody here wants to come to work. I think that's our decision, medically, personally. If we're ready for a vaccine, we'll get it. But that's my personal choice. That's their personal choice. And I want it to be your personal choice. I want you guys to be able to look in the mirror and say, I made the right decision. Can I look in the mirror and say, I am qualified to make a medical decision for every city employee? Could you do that? I know I couldn't. So, I'm asking you guys to think about it. All we want is a test. We want to come to work. We want to do our jobs. We want to protect the city of St. Paul and your families. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for testifying, Ryan. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to go in a completely different direction, but I want to tell you I'm so glad I came today to listen to the folks here. It's been really good. Okay, thanks. Two things about some of the...
Before you get started, would you mind just giving us an
I'm
introduction?
sorry, yep.
That's all right.
Jean Comstock. I live at 729 East 6th Street in St. Paul, in the extraordinary east side of St. Paul. So one of the things I wanted to, there's a couple things I see on here that funds are being allocated for, one being housing, and I would like to make the request that a good part of that go to weatherization of existing homes, because that hits a lot of people in the pocketbook, particularly renters who move in and have to take whatever they get, and really we need some weatherization help there to cut down on those bills. We're trying to work to get Excel to get an inclusive financing program started. That'll help too, but anything the city can do would be great. The second thing has to do with jobs and career readiness. I want to encourage you to think about setting up job training for green jobs, for solar. We've talked a lot about, with line 3, about pipe fitters jobs, and I tell you, geothermal will be great for pipe fitters. I've talked to folks at the union who really advocate for it, so that would be great too. And as another thing, get some people trained on weatherization. Those are good jobs too. So that's it. Thanks to everybody. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane. Other welcome.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Burnett. I work for the City of St. Paul in the Parks and Recreation Department. More specifically, I work in abatements. I'm a member of the Labor's Local 363 and part of the Tri-Council. I'm just here to ask, well, first of all, if you're not familiar with what abatements are, I'm sure you are. It's a bit of a mixture. We perform labor work, we work as mediators, we work as a little bit of police officer work if they're not there, and I just want to ask that the job, the wage reflect the job, and I'd like if you pass that message along. Thank you.
There you go. This is your chance. We're all ears. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Brady Sin. I work in Parks and Rec, also on the abatement crew. I just wanted to give some insight to a few things that I've encountered in my 8 years. I'm a parks worker, and I show up to people's homes, in their yards. I knock on their doors. I perform work in their porches. I've had guns pointed at me. I've been followed to the dump. I've been harassed. We talk a lot about safe and comfortable work environments. There is no part of my day that is ever safe or comfortable. We do homeless encampments. We have protesters jumping on equipment. I'm sure you're all aware of what happened at Arlington Rec Center. To this day, we don't know who checks the tent. We don't have procedures. I think it's important that we get paid for the trauma that we're encountering every single day. Thank you.
Thank you. You coming up? No, come on up. We're fine.
Hi. I know budgeting and trying to balance a budget is very, very hard.
Could you just start with the introduction?
Oh, I'm Phyllis Lynch. I was here earlier.
Sorry.
I know it's really hard,
Welcome back.
and everybody in their household, they have to do it. And what you need to do to balance it is really take in consideration what is most important, what is most valuable. And for what I'm hearing today from everybody, it's the people that take care of us and take care of you. It's the firemen, it's the policemen, it's the road crew, it's the teachers, it's the medical.
You don't get to testify twice, so quick wrap up.
Wrap it up?
Yep.
We have to wrap it up. So let's take care of them that take care of us.
Right on.
I think that's basically what we're all hoping
Right
here.
on, right on. You heading to the mics?
Yeah.
All right, welcome. I just didn't know if you were going to grab a beer or something. No, she's heading to the mics. Right, welcome.
I wasn't going to speak, but my name is Sheila Peckman. I live in the
Sheila, can you step a little bit closer to the mic for us? Thank
I live
you.
in the Como Park neighborhood. I'm a public employee. I'm an AFSCME union member. And to hear that they're looking at a 0% for next year, that's just embarrassing. If you're going to raise my property taxes, I would support, obviously, helping the city workers in terms of getting a raise. The prediction is inflation is 5%. And so I think in support of this city and what goes on budget-wise, I think that's really an important thing to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Welcome. Be sure to sign in when you're done, and let's make sure you start with an introduction.
Okay. Yep. My name's Emily Benzie. I grew up in Macroveland and now live in Merriam Park. And I'm also a volunteer with St. Paul's group of Moms Demand Action. And I'm very concerned about the rise of gun violence in our city over the past few years. And of course, the shooting last weekend on West 7th hit much too close to home. So I'm here just to support robust funding for the Office of Neighborhood Safety and voice support for both adequate funding of our police department and also investment in evidence-based interventions like community violence interruption programs to help decrease the risk of gun violence upstream. Just kind of an all-hands-on-deck approach. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Emily. Good, welcome.
My name's Dave Joplad. 28 years working for the city of St. Paul. I'm a heavy equipment operator, street maintenance right over here. I think everyone else here has pretty much stated the facts for the most part.
Dave, can you just come a little closer to the mic so we can hear everything
I
you
only
say?
have one question. By a show of hands, are any of you folks up there doctors? Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. All right, is there anyone else who has not had an opportunity to testify? It's like you're going to be one today.
Yes.
Step a little close to the mic and welcome.
Hello. First, thank you for the opportunity to come here and ask questions or statements. My name is Patrick Connor. I'm a 15-year firefighter paramedic with the city of St. Paul, and I love this city. I'm here to ask so that the city council make an adjustment to their vaccination policy regarding mandatory vaccinations. We have individuals over here during the pandemic that have provided services to the city of St. Paul. We have representation from the fire department over here that has probably been exposed to COVID the most because we transport the patients to the hospital. But what we would like is we would like you guys to at least reconsider the testing for the COVID as far as the mandate goes. Nobody here is against, well, we're all against COVID, but we support the direction you want to go with making sure the city's safe and such, but we still want our rights to be met so that we can make that choice. And we can do that safely. The paramedics on your fire department for the last 20 months have been dealing with these patients without vaccines, or some of them have been vaccinated. But it's a personal choice for us, and I just ask that you work with us, and you try to get the mayor to work with us also for that, because we just like to have that option. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for your service. All right, is there anyone else? I know we're kind of having to coax you up, but we're here, we're listening. For people who, I think Patrick started out by saying he's not much of a public speaker. You did a great job. And maybe you should think you should do it more often. But we just want to, I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. This is just one way to reach out to your council members. We are extremely accessible. My cell phone number has been published on the internet since I started, and I probably get one call every 6 months from what people see on the internet. I get a lot more than that in my office and otherwise, but we're here. We want to hear what you have to say. It has been an honor and a privilege to listen to our city workers in person talking about their challenges and what their expectations are of their elected officials. We work with you, and so we appreciate this opportunity. This is the first time we've had a public hearing that the bulk of our testimony has been from our employees. So thank you. We really do appreciate that here today. So thank you. And we are grateful to all of you for your service, especially through COVID. And I would like to give you a round of applause. We appreciate it, and we're hearing what you're saying that you would like, how that you'd like that to be acknowledged. So thank you for that. Again, you can reach us by phone. You can reach us by email. All of us have community office hours online and in person. Come join us and participate in this budget process. At this point, we have one person who's here to testify. If you still want to testify, that's absolutely fine. I was just riffing, like in the band. So come on up.
Hi, I'm
Welcome.
Kiki San, and I didn't know that the public hearing would not go on for hours and hours. But anyway, it's enjoyable to be here to talk to you about my concerns. I think we really need to utilize some of the federal dollars that we have available to us to right egregious wrong that's been going on for decades down at Pig's Eye Regional Park. That land was sacred to the Dakota Indians. It's called Shokan Tonka, meaning the big middle. It sits in the middle of the origin story where they have a Badole, where they have the confluence of the Mississippi and the Minnesota River, and their homeland, Prairie Island. And in the center is Pig's Eye. And what's happened there? There's a wood chipper on park land, public land, been down there for decades, with or without a lease, I don't know. Now we got a soil dump down there by the water department. We've got hazardous waste put on there by the Metropolitan Council. We have an unregulated, unpermitted dump that was set down there in the 40s. My family was part of that problem because we used to go to the dump as an outing. But now there's some federal dollars to do big things, big ticket items like cleaning up. We can reestablish that land. We can repair it, we can restore it, and we need to have reparations down there. That's what I want you to consider.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kiki. Welcome.
Hey, I'm Joe Ritchie. Live in St. Paul, the east side, my whole life. I actually work, obviously, for the city of St. Paul. And I couldn't help but notice that everyone up there gave us thanks for working. And we do appreciate thanks. But there's a difference between showing your appreciation and just saying you appreciate something. And now's your chance to show us that you appreciate us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else before we close this public hearing? Anyone else? There you are.
Hello, my name is Ryan Wagner. I'm a St. Paul firefighter and paramedic. I'm a member of the East Side community, and I'm coming up to speak to you today to request that the fire department, as well as the other departments in the city, are given the option to test for COVID weekly, as has been established elsewhere in the country. It's a way to keep the community safe while still respecting the medical decisions of the individuals who are choosing not to get the COVID vaccine. I would request that this is done in lieu of firing individuals who have given blood, sweat, and tears to this city through the COVID-19 pandemic and the civil unrest of the past year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. All right, if there is no other testimony, we have come to the end of our agenda. All right, it looks like there's no further testimony. I think we'll skip news from the wards. All right, so since there's no further business to come before us, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.